Do you fancy your first EV with more than 500 miles range, rear range? They're already here, but according to the critics and the media, until they can all do 500 miles or more, they won't even look at them. They continue to spout EVs are not yet ready. They need to do either 500, some quote as many as 1,000-mile range before they'll take them seriously. Until then, they just aren't suitable for most drivers. Now we're going to look in detail into what's available right now and prices. See, the first test models that are capable of covering 1,000 miles are now appearing on the scene. So can we expect a huge advertising blitz from the media and a mad rush in the sale of new EVs that can cover 1,000 miles? Well, you know the answer to that one. Okay, there are no commercially available EVs that are currently for sale that can cover 1,000 miles, according to WLTP, the universal method for calculating range. And no petrol cars can either. There are batteries available that can offer 1,000-mile range, but to date no manufacturer has put one in an EV and then put it up for sale. But the first 500-mile range EVs are now hitting the market, and that range beats an awful lot of petrol and diesel car ranges. I'm Dave with the reason no 1,000-mile range EV has ever been made to date, and none are ever likely to. And this is probably not what you're going to expect. Well, firstly, we must quickly tackle where this myth came from. It was simply a stalling tactic to stop someone admitting that they don't want an EV. It's usually accompanied by the phrase, "Oh, but when one is available, I'll look at it again." If you ask them what's the range of their petrol or diesel car, they get flustered. They actually don't know. I suspect 95% of the UK drivers don't know the range of their car. They may well quote, well, it's something over 400 miles, or, well, I know it's under 600, but that's about it. Most really have no idea, and that's because no one has ever told them. Certainly not the salesman in the dealership. Mr. and Mrs. Customer, this model has a 40-litre petrol tank that'll give you a range of about 400 miles, while this model has the larger tank of 50 litres, and that one can do nearly 500 miles. Range anxiety has simply never been an issue to UK motorists for the last 50 years because when they run low, they know from years or decades of experience they can simply pull into any garage or service station and fill up, most at 24 hours. Range as such is not an issue to them, but the ability to go on a long drive and top up whenever they want has been ingrained into their psyche, even if they never actually complete a single road trip that empties the tank. But the first question many EV buyers ask a salesman in the dealership is, what's its range? It's a total reversal. It can become possibly the most important item for them as a buyer in their decision. That's the power of the media. Early EVs like Renault Zoe and Nissan Leaf had appalling ranges. Leaf on a typical day could do about 50 miles, much less in winter. Zoe was only a touch more, certainly not up to a 1,000-mile road trip. We recently talked to a delightful lady deep in North Wales who had an original Leaf and drove back home from Manchester Airport, a trip involving, as she told us, 4 stops to charge. Only the brave. By the way, it's interesting to ask these critics back how many petrol or diesel cars are there in showrooms today that can get 1,000 miles out of a tank full. Well, spoiler alert, there are none, never have been, never will be. Back then, these EVs were not intended for road trips. I take my hat off to those brave few that did. And that was absolutely fine because most drivers never did road trips. And very few do to this day. Add in that it was a nightmare even finding suitable working and vacant chargers. Now, in contrast, early Teslas had ranges of 200 or 300 miles and access to the world's largest ultra-rapid supercharging network. The built-in sat-nav was pre-programmed to just find them all for you, and they were always working very quick, very cheap, and incredibly rarely found full. That was chalk and cheese, and it does help to explain the popularity of the brand. It took almost all the worries away from the buyer. So the major factor stopping many people making transition is the almost total lack of knowledge of EVs outside of what media spin tells us. And I do know this from experience. Quick check in my comments section, you'll find countless requests all along the lines of, well, my new EV arrives Wednesday, I only do about 5,000 miles a year, so what brand of £1,000 7 kilowatt EV home charger is best for me to order? The reality is about 75% of the existing EV owners cope perfectly well, perfectly happy, doing far more miles than that on a 3-pin plug using the charger provided with the car. It is genuinely all they need if they are average, do 10 or 15 miles a day commuting and less than 100 miles at the weekend. Far too many buy their EV and charger for the absolute worst case scenario of this massive road trip they never have done, probably never will. But there are those who will tell me, a 6-year EV veteran who was a rep on the road with that EV, that I'm wrong and they do actually truly need 500-mile range. So let's bring them up to speed on what is available and what price it will cost them. Well, 500 mile and above is very poorly served at present because the only qualifiers are not yet available for sale in the UK. This includes cars like the top of the shop Lucid Air Grand Touring. Now, I mention it here because it is available in Europe and supposed to be finding its way into right-hand drive over here one day soon. Yeah, don't hold your breath. Today, Europeans can buy and drive this fantastic EV, which offers a real-world average range of 450 miles. And that's what you're likely to get. But the WLT figures for mild weather driving range from 434 belting down an autobahn to a simply incredible 620 miles range just knocking around the city or posing in Monaco. Prices start from a very sensible €90,000, but to get the 500 mile plus version, you need this model featured here, which is priced at very reasonable for its class €130,000. Great news for those that can afford it. Well, first of the realistic models on offer in UK will be the new BMW iX50 xDrive. Well, really catchy name. This is based on their brand new platform you're going to hear a lot about. Total break from tradition. This is purpose-built on the very latest tech available to them and offers, in their words, 450 to 500 miles range. Now, this is a bit of a con. No, let's be blunt. This is an outright deliberate lie. WLTP quotes a variety of figures and most brands just take one reading, normally the average of everything combined. EVs, as explained, are the opposite of petrol cars. Petrol cars, fantastic cruising down a motorway, dual carriageway, steady 50 or 60, but they're absolutely pants at stop-start around town or commuting. EVs are absolutely at their best around town and fall considerably short on motorways. Now, most people commute, so this could be to your advantage for an EV, as the average daily mileage is just 17 miles, hardly belting for hours down the motorway each day. EV batteries also provide less power during winter, more during summer, so it's easy for a manufacturer like BMW to take that WLTP best case scenario ever figure around town in the summer and present this to an uneducated buyer. BMW iX50 can hit 500 miles theoretically, but only in the summer around town. In the winter on the motorway, it's quoting much nearer 270 miles, half that figure, which is shocking. But a combined summer figure motorway and city is actually 430 miles, and the combined winter figure is 315. You would have to drive extraordinarily careful to get 500 miles stated in the advert on their website. Not entirely possible. Is this the new Dieselgate? The basic spec is actually pretty mediocre, and it even includes NMC batteries, which most people these days are preferring the LFP. This car costs about £60,000, or should I say from £60,000, because most of what you want is probably an optional extra, and it's included in different variants and various packages like tech package at 1700 or the iX3 Sport variant for 3k more. Final price, we've put this well out of the reach of many drivers, and it'll take it up into competition that offers far more as standard for far less money. 65k, this is approaching 50% dearer than the new MG IM6, complete with LFP batteries, albeit with shorter range. I feel BMW has a very good car, vastly overpriced, but an absolutely appalling business model. Here's your chosen car. It'll be £5,000 than the nearly £60,000 you were hoping for when you walked in. Oh, sorry, I forgot the 2.5k for the alloys. Oh yeah, and sun protection on your full-length sunroof, 450 quid. Oh, almost forgot your heated steering wheel. Heated steering wheel, 250 quid. It's a £60,000 car. Should have all of this built in as standard, and the only options should be things like colour and which type of alloy wheels. This is not for me. The real range in the real world is stated as 375 miles, not this fictional 500 miles BMW state on their website. Next in line is a much more reasonable but equally premium model, the brand new Mercedes CLA. This is the first of their very latest purpose-built platforms, and it shows the spec is simply amazing. On paper. And hopefully Mercedes haven't forgotten how to put a car together. Big question mark is always the tech and the software. There are several figures quoted for the top model, but their official WLT figure on the website, 484 miles. But as with BMW, you ain't going to get anywhere near that on the road. Now, a quick search finds the CLA 250 EQ technology AMG line with 461 mile range. You won't get it. 47,745, and that's a world apart from the first pathetic efforts of the EQA. Over 50k, 250 mile range on a good sunny day on the existing heavy clunky old Mercedes chassis. You've got to look really close with those to find out which is petrol and EV. So it's also a world apart from the BMW iX3 we mentioned previously. It's about 20k cheaper. But initial reports are finding it small, much smaller inside the same Model 3. Also, it's difficult to get the stated range, like the BMW, but unlike the Model 3, which exceeded it. The screen and user interface came in for quite a bit of stick. You really would have thought that a 50k plus premium car would have spot-on tech right out of the box. You get no charging backup versus the fantastic supercharging network at crazy cheap prices and amazing reliability. And on the Model 3, you get a full top-of-the-range computer and screen in the back for the kids to keep them totally engrossed and quiet even on the longest journeys. It's the little things that make the final decision. The CLA can add 200 miles top-up range in 10 minutes. Model 3 does 175 in 10 minutes. And the boot, if that's important, CLA has 405 litres, Tesla's 687. It's nearly twice as big. Well, to get the CLA 484 range, there'll be a version out later, but that's likely to be priced well over $60,000. Now, down in that realistic 460-mile range, we find that Tesla Model 3 at a long range. Now, figures vary here because Tesla tweaks everything all the time. Earlier this year, the range quoted was 437, but that's just shot up to 466 miles. And on several road tests, reviewers have actually beaten that figure. Not 500 miles, but a heck of a long way. Now, I've no problem quoting any range figure from any manufacturer if there's a good to excellent chance of average drivers getting it. I strongly object to a manufacturer plucking the very best hypothetical range figure out of the data, which no one is ever going to get. See the difference? Looks like these might well end up going head-to-head. Tesla and the Mercedes. The outright spec of the Merc makes it a potential winner as it's priced at $48,000, while the Tesla's $45,000. But the proof is going to be in the spec and the implementation. So Tesla has them in bundles with what's recognised to be the best user interface of any EV in the world, and the integration between car, supercharger, app, home charger and service depot and head office never been matched. Add in the absolute massive over-the-air updates, and this turns into a genuine competition. Different people will demand different emphasis. There is a breed of drivers who will value hand-stitched seats carried out by terribly skilled craftsmen working to a military precision of perfection as the mark of a perfect car. Others will love the Whoopee Cushion app that keeps the grandkids roaring with laughter for hours, and then the screen in the back that can play all their games currently on Steam. If the CLA tech and software does not stack up, it will not make it as a Tesla beater. Now, this next model could be the first real direct head-to-head challenger by Chinese brand MG with their new IM brand. It's a bit like Toyota with their Lexus. This is a direct Tesla challenger, and the tech and software coming from a well-established and experienced Chinese company is almost certainly well up to scratch. Their IM5 long range is clocked WLTP as 441 miles range, and at an almost identical price to the Model 3 long range. But this is different. It's got 800-volt architecture, rear-wheel steering, and a massive display that absolutely amazed me when I first sat in one. And everything all worked instantly, brilliantly, and quickly when I touched any of the buttons. It is close to Tesla standards with many, many more options. It's advertised as the business lounge of car cabins. It is. Plus the surround sound is described as sublime, and it is also. The range is down slightly, no superchargers or as many over-the-air updates, but this is one to consider. And as far as we know, no madman as CEO, just Chinese. Really must check that out before I speak next time. Well, this is a bold move, challenging Tesla head-on in all, including the price. We'll wait to see the results. First impressions, I think they could be onto a winner. Well, while BMW deliberately and blatantly misled with range, Audi doesn't. It too has a maximum range in summer in city-only driving of 540 miles WLTP. But on their website, they quote 366 maximum. And this, I believe, is a much more honest approach. It takes the worst winter combined city and motorway and the same summer combined winter and motorway and averages out the two, 366 miles. This is exactly what many manufacturers actually do. The Audis are impressive, no doubt, but it does now raise the question, what range figures should I select to make this comparison? If I use the manufacturer's website, then both BMW and Mercedes have 500-mile range cars, and Audi doesn't. But if I use the official WLTP average range figures, much more honest figure, Audi misses out for many buyers who will believe it simply cannot match up to BMW and Mercedes. See what I mean about EV education? You choose BMW for stating 500-mile range on the website, but you then get much closer to 350 mile in the real world. Or it could be as low as 250 mile on your way home if you pick up your car in a fierce winter storm and head down the motorway 70 mile an hour into a fierce headwind uphill. Car hasn't failed you, as many would believe. It's doing what it was always going to do, but the advertising has lied to you, just like the media lied to you about the range you need. Let's take that 500-mile range figure. Have you ever worked out how long it'll take to drive 500 mile? Let's say that's the distance between Bodmin in Cornwall, Glasgow in Scotland. Simply mammoth distance. Using Google Maps, that estimates it'll take us 8 hours, 16 minutes. Just think about that for a minute. The average working day is 8 hours. So this journey will take a whole working day, just one way. Now, I do get comments that state I drive 400 mile to get to work and then 400 mile home, so I need a 1,000-mile range, but they don't. They absolutely don't. Absolutely nobody will do that 5 days a week, even including lorry drivers. 400-mile driving one way is 7 hours according to Google, so 400 mile there, 400 mile back is 14 hours driving, which is illegal for HGV drivers. And of course, you would then have to do something when you got there, during which obviously you could charge your car without cutting into your working day. Hang on, what working day is left? Okay, UK government statistics state that we drive an average 17 miles per day and 95% of all journeys in the UK less than 100 mile. Now, in addition, lorry drivers are limited by law. They have tachographs to measure this to just 9 hours a day and 10 hours, no more than twice a week. Nobody works and gets paid for driving 7 hours doing something, then driving home. Nobody. Well, 95% of all drivers will never drive more than 100 miles, and those that do, they might go on to cover 200 or 300 just once a year or once in a lifetime. So the education begins. What you need is not what you think you need. Let me tell you why. For years, decades, you've been perfectly happy driving around in a petrol or diesel car that does, on average, about 400 miles. Range has never been an issue because you know from years or decades of experience that when you begin to run out, you're going to choose one of over 8,000 petrol stations and fill up in just a few minutes. So here's a question for you. If your EV also had a range of 400 miles, And you could pull into one of over 17,500 currently installed rapid or inter-rapid chargers scattered throughout the country, the UK today, and fill up in a few minutes. Would you then still insist you need 500-mile range before even looking at an EV? Don't forget, most modern EVs can add up to 200 miles in just 10 minutes. And that's about the speed of filling up with fuel on a slow day. Well, the sad thing is many would still say, yeah, I do actually need 500 miles. This is just education. Well, from here, most decent manufacturers quote average figures, not these furry ones. So you're going to find a plethora of models rated honestly and realistically between about 300, 350 miles real world range. Polestar 5 dual motor, about £90,000. Porsche Taycan Plus, also 90,000. Volvo ES90 twin motor, 82,000. VW ID7, 55,000. Lotus Emea, that's 85,000. Peugeot E3008 long range, and the Hyundai Ioniq 5, both about 65,000. Hyundai on Ioniq 6, 47,000. Renault Scenic, long range, 35,000. Xpeng G6, 44. All of these have WLTP ranges set in mild weather in city driving of 450 to well above 500 miles. And that means if you turn off the aircon, all other non-essential devices, set eco mode, and your aim is posing for the in-crowd crawling along 10-15 mile along the promenade in Biarritz, you could get over 500-mile range. You could. By the way, doing that in a Lamborghini might sound better, certainly louder, but they will be getting appalling efficiency. The official city figures are 6 to 10 miles per gallon, but 10 miles an hour, the word is, the actual consumption would be dramatically higher. And your roller will be a little better. Still, whoever bought a Lambo or a Roland couldn't afford the fuel. I'll leave you to think about that. Well, the best way for EVs to finally ditch that myth about needing a 1,000-mile range is simply to get charging speed very much quicker, down maybe to 5 to 10 minutes. At that range, if anyone states they need 1,000 range, you can always reply with, and what range does your petrol car get to the tank full? Thanks very much for watching. I'm Dave.